The New York Knicks just took Game 1 of the NBA Finals, and this was far more than a routine opening game victory. They walked into a hostile environment, fell behind by as many as 14 points during the third quarter, and still found a way to completely flip the game. New York dominated the second half 57-40 and extended its incredible playoff winning streak to 12 straight games. Think about that for a second. The Knicks have not lost a playoff game since late April. At some point, the conversation has to change. This is not a team that simply benefited from a favorable path through the bracket. This is a legitimate powerhouse playing with confidence, discipline, and belief. Before diving deeper, make sure to subscribe if you enjoy NBA Finals coverage and playoff breakdowns. This series is already delivering huge storylines, and there is a lot more to unpack as it unfolds. Now, while the Knicks deserve all the credit in the world for stealing Game 1, it is still far too early for Spurs fans to panic. San Antonio has faced adversity in every round of the playoffs and has consistently responded. But before looking ahead, it is important to understand exactly why New York won this game. And the biggest reason starts with Karl-Anthony Towns. Yes, Jalen Brunson delivered in big moments. Josh Hart was everywhere, grabbing 15 huge rebounds. OG Anunoby made critical plays down the stretch, but Towns was the player who immediately changed the biggest strategic question entering this series. For months, teams have struggled to deal with San Antonio's defense because Victor Wembanyama controls the paint like few players in basketball history. Even when opponents beat their defender off the dribble, they still have to deal with Wembanyama waiting near the rim. That has been the foundation of the Spurs' playoff success. Towns challenged that foundation from the opening tip. Instead of allowing Wembanyama to camp near the basket, New York constantly used Towns at the top of the floor. Because Towns is such a dangerous shooter and playmaker, Wembanyama could not simply ignore him. He was forced to defend farther away from the rim, sometimes all the way out near the three-point line. That created a completely different dynamic than San Antonio had seen throughout most of the postseason. Once Towns pulled Wembanyama away from the basket, opportunities started opening up. He could catch the ball 25 feet from the rim, face up, attack off the dribble, or create for teammates. Several times during the game, he drove right past defenders and reached the basket without facing the usual wall of resistance waiting inside. Against this Spurs defense, those are rare opportunities. Even when San Antonio tried adjusting by having Wembanyama help off Josh Hart to stay closer to the paint, New York found another advantage. The moment Wembanyama left Towns, it affected rebounding position and spacing. Suddenly, the Knicks were creating extra chances and forcing the Spurs into difficult decisions all over the floor. And that became one of the biggest reasons Game 1 swung in New York's favor. One sequence perfectly captured the challenge Karl-Anthony Towns created for San Antonio in Game 1. Josh Hart launched a three-pointer, Wembanyama rotated out to contest, and the shot missed. Normally, that would be considered a defensive win, but what happened next told a different story. With Wembanyama pulled away from the basket, New York crashed the glass, grabbed the offensive rebound, scored the putback, and drew a foul. That was the hidden problem the Knicks kept exposing throughout the night. The Spurs found themselves stuck between two difficult choices. If Wembanyama stayed attached to Towns near the perimeter, he was no longer protecting the rim or controlling rebounds the way he usually does. But if he left Towns to roam and help elsewhere, New York gained favorable matchups and extra space to operate. It was a constant balancing act, and Towns forced San Antonio into decisions it rarely has to make. What might be even more concerning for the Spurs is that Towns probably did not maximize every opportunity available to him. There were stretches where he had smaller defenders switched onto him, yet instead of aggressively attacking those mismatches, he drifted within the offense. He still had an excellent game with 18 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 offensive boards, but it felt like there was room for even more. That is what makes this matchup so fascinating moving forward. If this was not the most aggressive version of Towns, San Antonio could have another major problem to solve in Game 2. But Towns was only part of the story. The second major reason New York stole Game 1 was what happened during a crucial stretch in the third quarter. At one point, San Antonio appeared to be in complete control. The Spurs built a 65-51 lead and looked ready to create serious separation. Instead, the game completely flipped. Down by double digits, New York found life during a stretch when Wembanyama was off the floor, and that changed everything. Suddenly, the Knicks began attacking with confidence. Towns got downhill and finished through contact. Defensively, New York started making plays, turning stops into transition opportunities before San Antonio could organize its defense. The momentum kept building. A blocked floater led to a fast break score. Jalen Brunson sliced through the defense for a tough finish. Josh Hart and the rest of the Knicks started winning loose ball battles. Possession after possession, New York looked faster, more aggressive, and more connected. What had been a comfortable Spurs lead quickly shrank to just 6 points, and the energy in the game completely changed. Even when San Antonio responded with a few baskets of its own, it felt like the tide had already turned. The Knicks were getting stops, pushing the pace, and controlling the possession battle. Then came the exclamation point. Miles McBride buried a difficult corner three at the end of the quarter, and suddenly the entire feel of the game shifted. Instead of trying to survive, New York looked like a team that believed it was going to win. From that moment forward, the Knicks were right back in the fight and ready to take control. The numbers at the end of the third quarter perfectly matched what the game felt like on the court. New York was not dominating because it was shooting at an incredible level. In fact, the Knicks were having a fairly rough night from the field. They were shooting just 42% overall and only 31% from three-point range. Under normal circumstances, those percentages might put a team in serious trouble, but the Knicks found other ways to win possessions. By the end of the third quarter, they had already piled up 16 second-chance points compared to San Antonio's 6. That gap was enormous. Those extra possessions came from effort, discipline, and physicality. New York consistently crashed the offensive glass, came up with loose balls, and made timely cuts when the defense lost focus. Even when shots were not falling, the Knicks kept creating opportunities. They defended with energy, forced difficult possessions, and slowly chipped away at the Spurs' lead until the game was completely within reach. Then came the fourth quarter, and this is where Jalen Brunson reminded everyone why he is one of the most dangerous late-game players in basketball. Up to that point, it had not been a smooth night for him. He struggled through stretches of the game, took several hard bumps, and worked for every point. By the final buzzer, he needed 31 shot attempts to reach 30 points. But when the game entered winning time, none of that mattered. Brunson completely took over. Over a crucial stretch of the fourth quarter, he scored 13 points while operating with incredible efficiency. Possession after possession, he found ways to break down San Antonio's defense. First, he used a favorable matchup to create space for one of his signature floaters. Then he attacked in transition, getting downhill before the Spurs could fully organize defensively. Every time San Antonio seemed ready to stabilize the game, Brunson found another answer. One of the smartest plays of the night came when New York used a well-designed screen action that created just enough separation for Brunson to attack the rim. The timing was perfect, the execution was sharp, and the result was another huge basket. Moments later, he made a hustle play on the offensive glass, tipping the ball out to keep the possession alive before relocating and knocking down a massive three-pointer. Then came the shot that truly defined the night. Matched up one-on-one, Brunson patiently worked his defender, waited for the slightest opening, and delivered a tough, high-arcing jumper that seemed to hang in the air forever before dropping through the net. It was the kind of shot only elite shot makers can create. The performance was not flawless from start to finish, but when New York needed a leader, Brunson delivered. After trailing by 14 points early in the third quarter, the Knicks stormed back and dominated the second half 57-40. Their defense, rebounding, and relentless effort gave them a chance, and Brunson's clutch fourth-quarter brilliance finished the job, securing a massive Game 1 victory on the road. The fourth quarter was where New York completely separated itself, and the numbers tell the story. The Knicks won the final period 29-19, took care of the basketball, and committed 0 turnovers over the final 12 minutes. Meanwhile, San Antonio turned it over 5 times during the same stretch. In a close NBA Finals game, that kind of difference is massive. Every possession matters, and New York consistently made better use of theirs when the pressure was highest. What made the performance even more impressive was that this was not simply a case of Jalen Brunson carrying the entire team. Yes, Brunson delivered the biggest shots and took control when it mattered most, but he had plenty of help around him. Josh Hart overcame a difficult start after picking up 3 fouls in the first 7 minutes and spending much of the first half on the bench. Despite that, he still finished with 15 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals, and a remarkable +22 rating. His energy completely changed the game. OG Anunoby also stepped up in a huge way, scoring 12 points in the fourth quarter alone. Landry Shamet gave New York valuable minutes off the bench, knocking down 3 triples and finishing with 13 points. And throughout the entire game, Karl Anthony Towns continued impacting nearly every area of the floor. Whether it was spacing, rebounding, playmaking, or creating difficult decisions for the Spurs defense, his influence never disappeared. That is what should concern San Antonio the most. This was not one superstar dragging a team to victory. The Knicks looked like the more complete team in Game 1. They got contributions from multiple players, won the hustle categories, and executed better down the stretch. Now, from the Spurs' perspective, there were several obvious issues that need to be fixed quickly. The biggest one was shooting. Landry Shamet's hot start helped keep San Antonio in control early as he scored 15 points in the first half. But after halftime, he added just 1 more point. More importantly, the rest of the team never picked up the slack. As a group, the Spurs made only 2 3-pointers during the entire second half. 2! Against a team as disciplined and talented as New York, that simply is not enough. San Antonio finished the second half shooting 2 for 19 from deep, and that offensive drought completely changed the flow of the game. The young players had flashes. Dylan Harper provided an early spark off the bench, attacking in transition and making important plays. Stephen Castle contributed quality moments as well. Wembanyama finished with 26 points, Castle scored 17, and Harper added 16. For 3 players who are all 22 years old or younger and playing in their first NBA Finals, those numbers are impressive. But against a team playing this well, flashes are not enough. The Spurs need more consistency, especially from their core pieces. Then there were the turnovers. That may have been the ugliest part of the entire night. Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox combined for 9 made field goals and 9 turnovers. That balance simply cannot happen if San Antonio expects to win games at this stage of the season. The Knicks punished those mistakes repeatedly, and it became one of the biggest reasons Game 1 slipped away. Victor Wembanyama's NBA Finals debut was impressive in a lot of ways, but it also showed why San Antonio left Game 1 feeling frustrated. On the surface, 26 points and 12 rebounds is an outstanding stat line for a player making his first Finals appearance. Most young stars would gladly take that kind of production. But the full picture tells a different story. Wembanyama shot just 6 for 21 from the field and committed 6 turnovers. Those mistakes mattered, especially in a game that was there for the taking. He made big plays, impacted the glass, and showed flashes of dominance, but the Spurs are going to need an even sharper version of their superstar if they want to beat a team as disciplined as New York. The same goes for De'Aaron Fox. San Antonio needs much more from its veteran guard moving forward. Fox finished with only 7 points while shooting 3 for 13 from the field, and that simply is not enough in a finals matchup. When the Knicks started making their push, the Spurs needed reliable offense from their experienced players, and they just did not get it. That is what makes this loss so painful from San Antonio's perspective. The opportunity was right there. The Spurs built a 14-point lead in the second half. Landry Shamet was on fire early. Dylan Harper came off the bench and delivered 16 points as a rookie on the biggest stage imaginable. Stephen Castle had productive stretches. Wembanyama posted strong counting stats. Yet somehow, it still was not enough. The offense stalled, the turnovers piled up, and the Knicks completely took control in the fourth quarter. What looked like a potential Spurs victory turned into a 10-point defeat. At the same time, this is not the moment for panic. If there is one thing San Antonio has proven throughout this postseason, it is that this team knows how to respond to adversity. Every round has tested them. Every series has featured setbacks, and every time, they have found a way to fight back. In the first round, they lost Game 2 after Wembanyama's concussion scare and immediately responded. In the second round, they dropped Game 1 against Minnesota and then flipped the series on its head. Against Oklahoma City, they faced multiple setbacks, including losses in Games 2, 3, and 5, yet still found a way to win the series by taking Game 7 on the road. This group has seen tough moments before, and it has consistently answered the challenge. None of that takes away from what New York accomplished. The Knicks were excellent. Karl Anthony Towns was outstanding. Jalen Brunson delivered when the game was on the line. Josh Hart impacted every area of the floor. New York earned this victory and deserves all the credit that comes with it. But the series is only one game old. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next finals update. Because if this postseason has taught us anything, it is that counting out these Spurs after one loss is a dangerous mistake. Game 1 was a huge statement from New York. Now comes the question that has defined San Antonio's entire playoff run. How will they respond? Based on everything they have shown so far, nobody should be surprised if they come back with a strong answer in Game 2.